For the most part, I don't remember what it was like because I was only 2 years old, and my father joined the faculty here after completing his PhD at the University of Illinois. And he continued on teaching biology for several years until he became part of the faculty of the medical school, which was a 2-year school at that time, and it was located here. It had not been moved to Jackson. So he was director of admissions of the medical school here at that time, and would have moved to Jackson had he lived. But then we lived on the campus the years that I'm remembering when we moved back from the University of Chicago. My brother was 4 and I was 7, and we were subletting a house from another faculty member that was on University Avenue, very much in the center of things. It had been a fraternity house. It was a very large house, and it was next to what was then the music hall and then was later occupied by the journalism department. And the only thing else that was in that block of land were some faculty apartments, very much of 1950s style. And then there was some open space, and within this small area, there were 4 faculty children, my brother and me, Jerry Pankratz, who was a couple of years younger than me, and the Harrison boys, whose father was the physician on campus at the time. But I remember that Jerry and I had an orphan Annie club underneath the bushes around the music hall, and sliding down the banks toward the railway tracks was one of our pastimes as kids. But those banks were extremely steep in those days. You would have been really, you would be in a mess if you tumbled down. We didn't tumble far, we didn't try to tumble far, just down on a leaf of whatever we had and back up and do it again until you got worn out with that. Life in our house was always full of activity, of things both of my parents had going on, and the house also had a suite or a room and bath rented to a man who was on the music faculty. He had only to go next door to pursue that. It also meant we frequently had musicians, after playing dances or wherever they'd been, sprawled out all over the 2 big living rooms and hall, asleep all over the house. My mother would find them when she went down, and it was this kind of ongoing activity in the house beyond just what a small family would generate. And this is what we grew up in the middle of when we were first here, so it seemed quite normal to us to have this amount of activity going on around us all the time. And we were not uncomfortable with it in the least. But the Grove was very much as it has remained. It was never used so heavily in those days as it became used as the years have gone by. But the academic part of the campus remains very much as it was. I don't know what we did specifically except play, go back and forth to town. We were not into a lot of heavily organized activities except at the hands of our music teachers, which was forced upon us on Saturday mornings, and other times we didn't want to sacrifice. But we were free spirits. There were a lot of outstanding faculty members that warranted more attention, I think, than we ever gave them. I was in a fortunate situation once I was in my teenage years of having connections to 2 activities that brought things to the campus. My father was head of the Artist Series, at that time sponsored only 4 programs a year. Was major to get 4 programs a year here. It was really a major undertaking, and lots of funny and interesting stories about that and the various people that came on his account. It was mainly classical music. and opera and symphonies and things that he enjoyed, and that he, of course, was trying to influence the students into taking some concern for this sort of thing, which was not easy to do because mostly they didn't really care. And the other program was run by my dear friend and mentor, Jim Silver, who was head of the history department at the time. And the ODK organization sponsored speaker programs. And Jim ran that program. And I was a graduate student of his and had been a student of his steadily through my undergraduate years. So I was very involved with him and the execution of that program, and met so many interesting people through that he brought here one way or another, that having access to what my father was doing and what Dr. Silver was doing, believe me, enriched my life beyond what it would have done otherwise. And I felt very fortunate to have that access and those two wonderful and talented men in my life. Of all the people on campus who were outstanding, those two are head and shoulders above the rest.